Hello, my name is Daniel Daly, and welcome to episode 15 of the Basketball Soapbox. In this one, I'll be going over Deandre Ayton staying with the Suns, Donovan Mitchell possibly going to the Knicks, and a little Celtics summer league, maybe even some Nets talk. But let's get into it. Deandre Ayton signed an offer sheet from the Indiana Pacers for 4 years, $133 million, and everyone's thinking, myself included, I'm like, him and Tyrese Halliburton, on paper, is a nice duo. Halliburton's an emerging guard in the league. Very talented, very high IQ passer. He's able to shoot the ball. They moved Brogdon out of Indiana to Boston to give Tyrese Halliburton the keys to that as the leading point guard. Bringing in Deandre Ayton, who's a young big man who can play pick and pop, pick and roll, finish at the rim, solid defensively. You think that's a good pairing? Well, that didn't happen. The Phoenix Suns didn't waste even an hour to match it. Bringing him back, which I think is a smart move for Phoenix. You don't want to lose Deandre Ayton for absolutely nothing. You don't want to do that, possibly, if he is going to be traded down the line or whatever the case may be. Bringing him back on a 4-year, $133 million deal is better than what he wanted in November, which he wanted, I believe, a 5-year, $172 million deal. So you're saving a ton of money there, over $30 million to just let him see what he can get on the free agent market, and he got significantly less than what he wanted in November. So that worked out for Phoenix. It was the largest offer sheet in NBA history. I believe the last one was Otto Porter from the Brooklyn Nets when he was with the Wizards, and the Wizards matched that, which I think was a dumb move at that time. But moving on, the Suns matched it right away. Ayton in the deal has a automatic veto for a year, so he can't be traded without his say-so for a year at least. So that's most likely next offseason. He can be traded on January 15th. That's when you can trade players that you recently signed. It's going to be interesting to see how that works, if he agrees to go anywhere or facilitate a trade out of Phoenix still. I think he should stay in Phoenix. I think Phoenix should want him in Phoenix. In the league, it's very hard to find a big man that's talented like that. I know a lot of the game is predicated on big men who can rim run, get to the rim, dunk, finish, block shots, and rebound. He has a little element of that, but a little bit more finesse to his game, and I think that pays dividends for Phoenix. But first, most importantly, he's going to have to repair that relationship with Monty Williams, or Monty Williams is going to have to repair it with him. The Suns organization is going to have to repair their relationship with Deandre Ayton, in my opinion. It didn't end well in Game 7. There was obviously a blow-up between him and Monty Williams on the bench there. That didn't sit right with anyone involved, I don't think. So they're going to have to repair that and try to navigate that, because that's not easy. It was on national TV. Kind of reminds you of Chuck Daly and Adrian Dantley, maybe not to that extent, maybe a little bit more subdued in that exchange there. But just thinking about coaches and players blow up, to see that happen on national TV in a blowout, something obviously was going on. Maybe tempers were raising high. Monty Williams didn't speak on it. We haven't heard much detail from that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that relationship between the Phoenix Suns and Monty Williams and Deandre Ayton goes. How they're able to get back on track. Because Deandre Ayton, you want a big guy like that can pick and pop, pick and roll, and shoot. He has a little mid-range. He can stretch it out to the 3. So I think Phoenix has to change their philosophy a little bit there, especially with Chris Paul aging, Devin Booker signing that max extension just last week, I believe, for $224 million. So they're going to have to really think about how they're going to use DeAndre Ayton going forward. I think they should try to post him up more, use him more, get his usage rate up. And I know people are going to say, I think there was a stat out there saying 70% of his shots are assisted. He's a big man who rolls and finishes and pops for mid-range shots. So I don't think that's a negative in that site. Point guards, playmakers in the league are going to handle the ball and create for the big men in this league. Unless you're a dominant big guy like Joker or Embiid, or even want to say Cat on the perimeter there, most of your points are going to be assisted in this league from a guard or a playmaking player. So I don't think that's a negative on DeAndre Ayton saying that he can't create his own shot. I think Phoenix has to figure out ways to keep him motivated and keep him involved in games, especially on the offensive end, because he's a big man in this league. And if you got mismatches on you, you have to exploit that. You can't have a Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert exchange where you're not passing him the ball now because the trust is not there, or whatever the case may be. CP3 is going to have to take a step back. That's the honest opinion of this Phoenix Suns team. In order for this team to make it to the next level, and be a perennial contender, possible champion, they're going to have to rely on Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton and Miles Bridges to a certain extent. Cam Johnson's on that team as another guy. They still have Jay Crowder. So they have to figure out ways to get these other guys to bump up their scoring, be a little bit more aggressive on the offensive end. And that's going to be Chris Paul relinquishing some power there. I know he's made his career on being a pure point guard, being one of the best point guards of all time. But in order to take that next leap, he's going to have to depend on Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. That's just going to have to be the move, especially for Phoenix. And it's going to be weird because Robert Sarver, the owner of the Suns, has been relatively cheap. We've seen this over the course of the years there. After the 2010s with Amari Stoudemire and Steve Nash, he really just gutted the team. All the way back to Joe Johnson, I think it was 2006 when he signed to Atlanta for $1 million, and they had a championship caliber roster, and all they needed was Joe Johnson to come back, and they let him go. So we've seen the Phoenix Suns be frivolous with their money and penny counting and watching how they spend money and used to blowing up teams in their history. So that won't be a surprise to see DeAndre Ayton traded or moved. It's just depending on what the relationship between the organization and DeAndre Ayton is. Obviously, they brought him back at a lower deal. They played that game. I've seen it a couple years ago. I can't remember too many times this happening, but I remember Marcus Smart a couple years ago before he signed his last contract. The Celtics were like, hey, see what you can get on the open market. And especially this year, especially just being a bad year, honestly, for teams with cap space and the ability to push the button of the Phoenix Suns to a point where they didn't want to, because we've seen that in the past, I believe. That was an unrestricted free agency. I believe Manu Ginobili was in Philly, offered him like $15 million a year to come play in Philly. I think Brett Brown took over at that time. But the Spurs matched it, maybe at a number they didn't want to pay, but in order to keep their core and their players together, that's what they did. So to see Phoenix match, it wasn't surprising. But to see them not try to orchestrate a sign and trade, that would definitely be something that's looked at. Kevin Durant wanted to go to Phoenix. I believe his top destination was Phoenix. They were talking about that. So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes down, because it definitely makes it more difficult with the salary bump that DeAndre Ayton has gotten from the Phoenix Suns in this free agent deal. So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes forward. But I think the Suns should try to figure out a way to build around Booker and Ayton. These are two young guys who are capable. You've seen them in the finals. You've seen them play extensively in the playoffs. And last year shouldn't be a barometer how we look at Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. In my opinion, I think that was just a bad matchup series, and especially with Chris Paul being hampered and them just getting blown out like that in Game 7, it looked bad. But you can repair that, I think. And I think it just has to be a change in philosophy and getting the ball back to Booker and DeAndre Ayton in the post. I think you have to use those guys and ride those guys all the way through the playoffs. And Chris Paul's going to have to chip in and basically be a facilitating point guard and try to just be healthy for the playoffs, because that's the most important thing. We've seen him break down year in, year out. He got to the finals but was a little hobbled there. But we'll see how that goes for them. But DeAndre Ayton staying in Phoenix, I think it's a good move for both sides. I think they should try to figure that out and repair that and continue to build this. You have Miles Bridges, you have Cam Johnson, you have a bunch of young guys on the roster who are capable, more than capable. Miles Bridges is a great defender. Cam Johnson, a good three-point shooter, long, lengthy on the defensive end. So there's some avenues here where this can be repaired, and I think Phoenix should try to do all they can to motivate DeAndre Ayton into the next caliber player of being an all-star or a potential all-star on that level of player for the Phoenix Suns. I think that will be good for the Phoenix going forward. And we'll see how that goes. Next up, we have the Utah Jazz potentially exploring trades for Donovan Mitchell, their all-star player, who doesn't seem to be a part of the timeline anymore. They have flirted with the Knicks, ridiculously asking for first-round picks. Obi Toppin, Isaiah Quigley, I believe, and a couple other guys, but not R.J. Barrett from the Knicks, which is crazy to me. Danny Ainge is trying to be a mastermind on his end, as he always tries to be. He got 5 first-round picks from the Rudy Gobert trade that happened last week, which is expected. This is a team that's looking to rebuild and capitalize on their all-star duo that they no longer fit their timeline, fit their trajectory, and basically heading for a full rebuild. They already have the Spirit Airlines brand on with their jerseys. Those jerseys are terrible. Utah, what are you doing? I don't even know where it's from. I have to look up on the history of that jersey and what their the story behind those jerseys. They have the mountain jerseys, which I always thought was fire, even though the Jazz and Utah don't go together. It's the Rocky Mountains on the jersey, whatever the case. But the colorway works. Who cares? This black and yellow colorway, I always wondered why a black and yellow colorway hasn't been in the NBA or introduced in the NBA. We saw it with the Lakers, I believe their Mamba uniform, I want to say. I'm sorry, I'm not a Lakers fan. I don't know the name of that jersey. But that's the closest to black and yellow that we've seen in the NBA. But this one looks terrible. Spirit Airlines, Western Union uniforms that they have on, whatever the case may be. Well, let's get back to the trade here. The Utah Jazz asking price is ridiculous. I understand that they're trying to capitalize on Donovan Mitchell and basically value Donovan Mitchell. Maybe this is a ploy by Danny Ainge to show, hey, we value you that much. We're willing to ask for more in a trade than Rudy Gobert. Maybe that's what it is. But if the Knicks agree to this in any sense of form, the Knicks are the worst franchise in sports at some point in the NBA. I don't care what Orlando's doing. I don't care what Sacramento Kings are doing. I don't care about the Clippers' history. The New York Knicks, if they trade 6 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell, what are they doing as a franchise? What are they doing? This would be a dumb move by the Knicks. Now, if they say 2 to 3, more understandable. A little still steep in my opinion in this trade here, especially maybe not asking for RJ Barrett is making the Utah Jazz extend those offers of the picks there, upping the ante there for the picks. But I just don't see this as a good move for the Knicks. Now, if they didn't go ahead and get Jalen Brunson last week for $4 million and do all that from Dallas and maybe there's tampering in there or something like that to that extent. But to pair Jalen Brunson, who's a small guard, and Donovan Mitchell, who's also a small guard, and both guys who need the ball in their hands, we've seen this before in Portland with Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum. Why would New York do this? I understand. Why would you do this to be a 42 to 44 win team possibly? And maybe get a 50-win season like Carmelo Anthony did with the Knicks a couple years ago, almost a decade ago. I understand you wanting to build talent and build a different type of feel to New York, because New York has been terrible and has been in a state of turbulence over the past 2 decades. I understand that. But this is just another Knicks move in their history to show that they don't know what they're doing. Bringing in Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, a miniature backcourt where you're not going to play any defense there. Julius Randle's already hating the touches he gets, the arguing with the fans there. So how are you going to bring that there to New York with Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson there and continue to derail this franchise, in my opinion? I don't think that's a smart move for the Knicks. I think it's a great, smart asking ploy from the Utah Jazz and Danny Ainge. That's smart. You just want to create as many assets as you want, and you're looking to create trades there with teams that potentially could flop. Minnesota can potentially flop. Those 5 first-round picks look favorable to the Utah Jazz, so that's understandable to make that trade. For the Knicks to make this trade, I don't see where it's working both ways here. Yes, they get Donovan Mitchell. Yes, they improve their team. And I'm not saying Donovan Mitchell's not a great player, not a good player in the league. I like Donovan Mitchell. I think he's a solid guard in this league who can really fill up the stat sheet, especially scoring-wise. But to sit there and give up six first-round picks, similar to what I think the Clippers did to get Paul George, I just don't think that's a smart move, especially in this day and age in the NBA where picks are valuable, not only in the draft, but in potential trades down the line for your team. And to give up that many assets, especially, I just don't think that's a smart move for the Knicks. I think what they should do is decline this trade, probably try to get down the picks to 2 or 3 and work it from there. Maybe try to include the Mitchell Robinson, whatever the case may be. Figure out something to ease the burden there in that trade there. Yes, you get Donovan Mitchell, you get an all-star player. Yes, I understand his father played baseball. I believe he played with the Mets. That's why he's always at Mets games and stuff like that. But to give up the house for Donovan Mitchell, who I don't even think they made a Western Conference Finals, to do that is just crazy. At least when Paul George got traded all those bunch of times, he made the Eastern Conference Finals. And last year he made the Western Conference Finals. Does that pay for the Clippers? I don't know. But to give up that many draft picks, I just don't think is a smart move for them. I just don't like that move for the Knicks at all. And I hate the Knicks. I don't like the Knicks. I don't care for the Knicks. But for them to do that is just negligence on their part. I just don't think that's a smart move for them. And especially, let's think of that Tibbs is the coach. Tibbs doesn't have a great offensive resume outside of Derrick Rose in those MVP years that we saw from him in those early years of Derrick Rose, which were awesome. I understand that. But his offense over the past couple years in Minnesota, in New York past year, it looks putrid. So to bring Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson in and just think, hey, our offense is going to be better. Yes, it's going to be better. But at what cost? Are the adjustments going to be made at the necessary times to satisfy all these players? Jalen Brunson, Evan Fournier, Isaiah Quigley, Obi Toppin, Julius Randle especially, who has been disgruntled there. So how are these moves going to work for the Knicks? And you're just going to, hey, we're just going to get a couple stars and just make the playoffs and be a first-round exit. Is that what you want if you're New York? Aren't you trying to change the culture? Aren't you trying to be better? That would just be a dumb move for the Knicks. I'm sorry. 6 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell is not a good trade in any sense. In any team, I'm sorry. That's just not a good trade. Not at all. I don't think that's what they should do. If anything, I think they should just go forward with their team. You got Jalen Brunson, you got Julius Randle, and try to figure it out from there. If you're going to trade for Donovan Mitchell, get a better package deal, please. Get a third team involved where you can get somebody else to come in and take some bad salaries or whatever the case may be. But do not take 6 first-round picks and give them to the Utah Jazz, who are rebuilding, and to your team who will not be structured right, especially with Tibbs as coach, especially with the New York crowd and fan base. They're not going to like that. So to sit there and just continuously be a 40 to 44 win team, I don't think that's the move for the Knicks. And I think they need to find a way. Danny Ainge is up to tricks again. And he's showing it right now. At this point in time, you can call it our weekly Brooklyn news. With the offer match sheet signed by the Suns to Deandre Ayton's return, that closes the Kevin Durant trade to Phoenix for now. It makes it a lot more complicated. They have to get another team involved. And there has to be some other moves that have to happen for that to happen, for him to go to Phoenix. Now, looking at that, Jerry West came out and said, you can't trade enough to get Kevin Durant. And I agree with that. Kevin Durant's asking price is unknown because he's that valuable. It's like trading for Shaq in his prime. It's like trading for a LeBron James in his prime, a Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like the asking price for these guys, if Utah is trying to get 6 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell, what do you think the asking price for Kevin Durant is? I don't think there's a duo in the league that can replicate that. It would have to be like, I can't even think. It would have to be crazy in order for a trade to go through, for that to work. So all the roads are leading back to Kevin Durant heading back to Brooklyn. Now, does that mean Kyrie Irving's going to stay there? They're trying to facilitate something with the Lakers for Russell Westbrook at some point. Maybe not even. Maybe there's a third team. I've read somewhere that the Spurs might help facilitate that, which I don't agree with. I don't see the Spurs facilitating that deal and helping the Lakers in which way, given their history, unless it's a bunch of draft picks, which the Lakers don't have, which Brooklyn doesn't have because they gave to Houston. So all these trickling effects and all these stories that we're hearing, I don't see an avenue right now where Kevin Durant gets out of Brooklyn, especially with that Suns trade going, that Suns signing of Deandre Ayton going down. Could he end up in Miami? That would require them to move some more pieces, move Ben Simmons, potentially to bring in a Bam Adebayo or Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. I'm sorry, that just doesn't sound good from the Nets' perspective to get basically 4 quarters on the dollar, as they always say. You're getting a bunch of quarters that's for a player that's $1, and those 4 quarters don't equal $1. So no, that doesn't work for them. So you start looking around the league and you're like, where else could he go? Boston. Boston probably has a bunch of assets that Brooklyn would want and try to rebuild and build around potentially Jaylen Brown, a Marcus Smart, or whatever package they can throw in around Jaylen Brown and picks. Maybe that's more enticing, but I just don't see the Celtics breaking up their young core for a 34-year-old player who has an injury history and trading away a young star like that. I just don't see that. So we keep looking around. People have been ridiculously saying the Lakers, LeBron for KD, and that's fit. Like, I wouldn't do that either. I understand what you're saying, but it's not making sense. So no, I wouldn't do that either. You start looking around. Clippers, I don't see them trading Paul George or Kawhi Leonard for Kevin Durant. I just don't see that. So there's going to have to be some movement if he is going to end up in Phoenix. There's going to have to be either a 3-team or 4-team trade deal there for that to happen. And I just don't see that happening for Kevin Durant. So he's returning back to Brooklyn most likely to start the season right now. Unless some fairy tale offer comes out of nowhere. But the Nets are a really big conundrum for me because it's like, okay, let's say you do bring these guys back. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. You do bring them back. You do what you need to do. Maybe Kyrie Irving boosts his trade value over the course of the season and you get him out of there, get some assets. Say, hey, Kevin, sit down, man. We're going to sit you down for a little bit and we're going to trade you in the offseason. Maybe more teams with cap space next year open up. Maybe a star gets disgruntled, whatever the case may be. What is that plan? What is the plan here? Steve Nash is still the coach of the Brooklyn Nets to my knowledge, and I said this last week in my other video. Why is he still the coach? If you bring him back, what has Steve Nash showed you as a coach to be trustworthy? Not even necessarily trustworthy, but in the playoffs, in big moments, making adjustments. What has he done to show you that he's trustworthy in those situations? I haven't seen it. But I don't know. I really just don't know about this Nets situation and what they're going to do here. Do I think they should try to flip all these guys for as much as they can? Absolutely. They traded all their picks in the James Harden trade, and it's just weird. I don't know how this works. And I explained to some people that Kevin Durant asked for a trade not because he wanted it initially out of Brooklyn. I believe he wanted to trade because they didn't extend Kyrie Irving. And I strongly think that's the motivation behind this trade request right now. And I said that. I was like, they're a duo package. Whatever sense that doesn't make to you, whatever sense it doesn't make to the average fan or whatever the case may be, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving went there as a package deal to Brooklyn. Basically wanted to be involved in all the ins and outs of the team. And what did they have shown is that they're not a good team building team. These guys don't know how to build a team. Deandre Ayton, trading all their young guys. DeAndre Jordan, my bad. Trading all their young guys over the past couple years. Turning around, bringing in Blake Griffin. Bringing in Steve Nash as the coach. And all these bad decisions have not equaled up to what the Nets wanted. But you know what you signed up for when you did this, when you brought these two guys in here. You saw how disgruntled Kyrie Irving was in his other stops. You've seen how even disgruntled Kevin Durant was, even winning championships in Golden State, how he was ousted. And you signed up for this. And I also said this to somebody. You know what you signed up for when you brought these two in here. You know what you signed up for. And this is what comes with it. So now what are the moves for Brooklyn? Do you bring these guys back and be like, hey, maybe we can try to retool, rebuild? You don't have any picks. So you can't bring anybody in. You're going to have to rely on Nick Claxton, Joe Harris. Bruce Brown, you also lost to the Denver Nuggets. So that's another hole you have to fill. But you have Ben Simmons. And what's his status? And what's he doing? Is he going to shoot the ball? Is he going to play point guard? All these question marks are around the Brooklyn Nets. And it's like, what are they going to do? You see there. Now, if you're watching the video on YouTube, which I've recently started, about 2 weeks ago. You see, I had to make the adjustment, put on the Celtics hat because I want to talk Celtics Summer League. The Celtics are 3-1 in Summer League. I don't care where it is or whatever it is. Celtics are winning. That's a good thing. The rookie J.D. Davidson had 28 and 10 against the Grizzlies the other night. He's averaging 12 points and 7 assists. And what I like about him so far is that his aggressiveness to attack the paint. And in distributing fine guys, which has been really nice and something that you need in a guard. Also just his athleticism shown on being displayed here in Summer League. The ability to attack the lane, his speed, pushing transition, even defensively getting up to block shots is just, it's a positive thing to see in a young guard, a second round pick, that late in the draft, to have that type of potential upside, to just see it. I don't care. He looks good out there playing basketball and looks like he's going to be a nice, possibly a two-way player this year. But I think he can add some things to the Boston Celtics potentially, especially defensively in the speed and a change of pace. The Celtics have athletes, but they don't play with a pace that I don't think they should. They don't take advantage of enough to create easy baskets, create a little bit more synergy with the ball passing back and forth. So to see this guy come in there, maybe he can come in and be a practice player for the Celtics and just attack and just show them, hey, we got to get moving, get in transition, do something. I like the big guy. I'm gonna butcher his name. I wrote it down. Let's just go with Kabengele, his last name. Let's just go with that because I can't pronounce it. I'm sorry. I haven't heard enough pronunciation on that. But this guy just catches everything, kind of like Robert Williams. He spent some time with the Clippers last year, and just plays above the rim. He attacks, finishes strong at the hoop, tough on the boards, and I like that. And the Celtics are looking for a big man there. Maybe this is a guy that they can look at. I know they drafted, Trevion Williams for Purdue. He's been okay in Summer League, but this guy right here has been standing out and has been making an impact on the boards and inside for the Celtics in Summer League. And I think that's an option that they're going to might have to explore. I know they're probably going to sign JD and Trevion Williams to two-way deals. I don't know how many two-way deal contracts they have, but this guy should get a look. If he's not going to get a look here, he's going to get a look somewhere else. Another guy that's been producing, Justin Jackson, has been really shooting the ball. I believe he was in the Jason Tatum draft, if I'm not mistaken, but he's bounced around a little bit, but he's been shooting the ball really well, averaging 16 points a game. There's that guy, Matt Ryan. He's had a nice Summer League game where he hit a game winner and was just deadly from three. So you're just looking at these guys that are just contributing in Summer League, and it's just nice to see young guys out there. Bonchero's been pulled from Summer League by the Magic there, and I didn't like that because I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to protect their asset and say, hey, we've seen enough. This guy's ready, and I understand that. But just keep playing, play with those young guys, and just get some reps in before the preseason starts and the regular season starts. I think that's good for a young player there. He got pulled out. I understand there might be some injury concerns there, especially with Shaedon Sharpe getting hurt in Portland with his shoulder, and then there was the guy in New Orleans, I can't remember his name, just tore his ACL in the end of this season. So I understand there could be some scares there, and you don't want that to happen to your guys. Chet Holmgren had a nice Summer League. Jabari Smith is having a nice Summer League after that poor start. People were saying he's really turned it on. I believe he's had 19 his last two games there down in Houston. So it's just good to see young players and see basketball continue. The NBA has been doing a great job continuing the 24-hour, 365 days, 7 days a week news cycle for the NBA. I think that's one of the biggest things they've done. You just left the finals, you had the draft, and now you have Summer League, and then preseason starts. It quiets down for a week or two, and then preseason starts, and we're right back at it. So the NBA, kudos to the NBA for doing that. I love the NBA. I love researching the NBA. I love always looking at news, listening to Woj, Zach Lowe, and other guys talk about the NBA. So it's just good to see the NBA just continue to stay on our brains as basketball fans, and I love it, and I think it's great. And that will do it for episode 15 of the Basketball Soapbox. Until next time, I'll be checking out some other news, especially with Summer League. 2K is coming out. I just bought some Zoom Freak 3s. Those feel fantastic. I'll probably do a review on that at some point. Also, just check out my YouTube page. I have a couple videos up there talking about the Nets, the Rudy Gobert trade. This episode will be on YouTube as well. a couple 2K vids that I put together, me just messing around in the rec a little bit. But yeah, check out my YouTube page, The Basketball Soapbox on YouTube. Also check out me on Spotify, Anchor app, wherever you find your podcast liking. And show support for your boy. Like, comment, subscribe, give me some feedback. Email me at the BSB pod at gmail.com and just give me some feedback. Let me know what you guys think. And always like, subscribe, comment. Check me out on Facebook, The Basketball Soapbox on Facebook. Yeah, and just check me out. And yeah, until next time, guys.